Hello folks. So if you're up to date with the videos, we have finished the 17 factors that potentially could explain low levels of development in sub-Saharan Africa, which is the bulk of the module, and we've basically got 4 sections left. Today's section is on pages 50 and 51 of your module. And it kind of flips what we've been saying on its head slightly. So the topic for today is the impacts of development. And I just need to kind of put that in context for you because it's a bit confusing. So yes, absolutely, sub-Saharan Africa does have the lowest levels of development in the world. But things are improving. We are beginning to see multinational investment, which we've mentioned. We're beginning to see people going there on holiday. In fact, some places like Kenya have been tourist destinations for a long time. Sierra Leone is the fastest growing tourist destination in the world right now. We're seeing neo-colonialism from China. We're seeing huge amounts of money being invested in Africa by China. We are seeing signs of development, all right, and we will very much finish with that. Kind of where do we go from here and what's happening, that will be the very last topic. But just for today, I promise you're going to feel on much firmer territory shortly. We need to say, okay, so there is development happening, so what? What does that mean? And the module asks you to know about 2 things. One of them is the rise of consumerism, which will be slightly new to you, and the other one will be very familiar, and it's the effects of development on the environment, which from the rest of your A-level and just being a human being on planet Earth you will know about. So most of this video will be about consumerism. Consumerism is buying stuff, essentially, and we are brilliant at it in this country. We tend not to make very much in the UK, but we consume, we buy stuff all the time. And the basic principle is in the middle of the slide. As a country develops, people get more money, and as you have more money, you buy more stuff. And that potentially can even work on a personal level. So for example, if you get a pay rise at work, or so you guys with, part-time jobs or whatever, I'm sure you're very good and you save some of it, but essentially with humans, the more money you have, the more money you spend. And that happens all over the planet. So we are seeing that happening in sub-Saharan Africa. And can I just make a plea that if you haven't yet got around to this, please, 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 will you watch a 21-minute video on YouTube called The Story of Stuff. It will really help you understand consumerism. It helps just for your general life as much as it does for this module. So please, I am begging you, make sure you watch that. And I can prove to you, look, with various graphs, and you can have a look on the internet if you're interested, as GDP increases, people burn more energy, they use more electricity, they might use their cars more, they might buy a car, not ever having had one before, they might put central heating in their houses. More money people have, the more energy we use. The more money people have, generally the more meat they eat. Now that may be changing as we move forward as a planet, but generally speaking, historically, the more money people have, the more meat they eat. This is electricity consumption, which we've kind of talked about. This is internet use. This is how many SUVs people own. All right, so what we're saying is you can look globally at the fact that as people have more money, they buy more stuff. That's fairly obvious. Now, Africa, as you can see from this slide, is definitely seeing the rise of the middle class. We're beginning to see people having more money in their pockets. You've got loads and loads of facts and figures in front of you. The only one I really need you to know is that one. Africa now has the fastest growing middle class in the world. These are people who have money to spend, All right, they are consumers. They've not had money to spend before, they've just been trying to survive, and now they've become consumers. And so what we're beginning to see, sorry, that was just a little focus on African GDP increasing. In countries like Kenya, is we're beginning to see retail spending. So this is consumerism, buying stuff. All right. So the total cumulative figure for retail spending, and people are buying more stuff. And we can see that in the rise of the shopping mall, ladies and gents. Now, we've talked about changing service sector in changing places, and we talked about the rise of out of town and the rise of the shopping mall and all of that. It's happening in sub-Saharan Africa as well. Now, that might surprise you, but the development means that you've got more consumers. Consumers want to spend money. What do they need? They need places to buy stuff. So we're seeing the rise of the shopping mall, more and more places that people can spend their money popping up all over Africa. I would suggest that Kenya is a really good country to focus on for this. You don't need to know a huge amount. You just need to know this basic relationship between development, money, consumerism, and what that's going to mean. But familiar territory. Environmental impacts of humans, we know they're terrible, and page 51 is essentially blank because it's for you to just kind of use as a revision opportunity, to be honest. So the first question on page 51 says, as people consume more of everything and produce more waste, there are many environmental issues. List as many as you can. Now, I've put a few prompts. You're going to see deforestation, aren't you? You are going to see death of animals, collapse of ecosystems, food chains changing. You're going to see climate change. You're going to see more waste being produced. This is a particularly nasty rubbish dump in Nairobi in Kenya, I think. You're going to see water shortages. You're going to see pollution incidents. You're going to see algal bloom or eutrophication. You're going to see mining, plastic waste, yada, da, da, da. Now, we've talked about this throughout your geography A level, and you will have seen it on the news and everything like that. So just use this as a little revision opportunity, and maybe pick the ones that you feel that you understand the most or could say the most about to be the environmental impacts that you talked about most extensively. Now, we are going to have to link them to case studies, but what I want to do is talk you through the words and phrases at the bottom of page 51, because not all of them will make perfect sense. Increasing consumption is what we've kind of already said. The more money people have, the more they want to buy, the more they're going to consume. And please make sure you watch The Story of Stuff, what you will understand is that when we buy a product, it has had huge impacts on loads and loads of places and people during its journey. So it will probably lead to deforestation and pollution and all those kinds of things. Exploiting natural resources is pretty obvious. That could be exploiting forests or animals or the atmosphere or water resources. Agro-industrialisation might not make quite so much sense, so I'm just going to skip ahead here. Agro means farming, from agriculture. Industrialisation is turning something into an industry. So agro-industrialisation is farming on an industrial scale. You are not just trying to produce enough food or whatever it is for your family or the local area. You are trying to produce enough of that product for, you know, thousands or millions of people. And most farming these days is kind of done on that scale. So agro-industrialisation is farming on an industrial scale. Extractive industries is a posh way of saying mining, because if you're mining something, you've got to get it out of the ground. You have to extract it, and so extractive industries means mining. Now, I'm suggesting that if you focus on Kenya and DR Congo for this part of the module, you should be able to cover all of those bases quite effectively, all right? Because the increasing consumption will be happening everywhere, and we don't need particular figures. You just need, and I'm sorry to keep banging on about it, but you just need to have watched the story of stuff, because then it will all make sense to you. Everywhere and everyone in the world exploits natural resources. We all do that, but deforestation is a particularly good example of that. So DR Congo is particularly good, unfortunately, for both deforestation and extractive industries, because DR Congo is on the equator, so it's tropical rainforest, so that opens a whole can of worms for that. So we've got deforestation of the rainforest to get at the minerals that are underground. So in DR Congo, to have your mines, you have to cut down the rainforest. So the two things kind of go hand in hand, and I've put, as you can see, a load of web links that you could have a look at for DR Congo. Kenya is particularly good for showing you the impacts of agro-industrialisation, because Kenya produces cut flowers, green beans, tea, all sorts of primary products, many of which end up in the UK and other European countries. To produce the amounts of food and flowers that we want to import in the UK, you are going to have to do that on an industrial scale. When you farm on an industrial scale, you are going to use huge amounts of water resources, and Kenya has a seasonal climate, so that's a little bit of a mishmash that's not going to go very well. You are also probably going to use huge amounts of chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, etc., etc. So farming on an industrial scale can affect your water cycle, but it can also lead to extensive pollution incidents, because of course, as you know, if you put a chemical on a field, that chemical is not going to stay in that field. We live on a planet where everything is interconnected. So DR Congo and Kenya, between the two of them, cover all of that. Now, they do also want you to know a little bit about manufacturing, which is making things, i.e. factories. Don't get too bogged down in this one. I've put a little bit there for you. It's about having a coal plant in Kenya, but as long as you know that manufacturing generally is quite a polluting process, look to, sorry China, but look to what's happened to the air quality and water quality of China as they've gone through their manufacturing boom, and it will be perfectly obvious to you. So don't get too bogged down in that one, but just have a look at it. Okay, and then you could have a little synoptic link here to global governance, because of course we are going to get waste problems. If people are going to become consumers, then they're going to buy more stuff, and when they buy that stuff, you're going to get lots of waste. And so you could have a link to global governance and sources of ocean pollution and plastics and all that. So as I said, this is quite a nice little revision part of the module. It's pages 50 and 51. It shouldn't take too long to get your head around, but as ever, any questions, give me a shout. And then our next topic will be desertification, coming soon. Thanks everybody.